Chair Becker-Fan, welcome to the committee. I will move that House File 782 be re-referred to, do you want it to go to Judiciary or Ways and Means?
Judiciary.
To the Judiciary Committee. I understand you have an author's amendment, is that correct?
Yep, there's a DE amendment.
Okay. Would you like to describe the DE? Or do you want to just?
Yeah, I think it's probably better if we just move the DE to, and then I can explain the bill.
Okay, fine. All those in favor of adopting the DE2 to get the bill in the order that the author wishes, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed to the adoption of the DE2? With that, the DE2 is adopted. Okay. Please tell us about your bill.
All right. Thank you, Chair Cleavorn. So taking us in a different direction from your last bill, Minnesota is facing a retirement crisis. Fewer workers have access to employer-sponsored plans, and lack of savings impact people's ability to achieve any type of meaningful retirement. Nearly half of Americans nearing retirement age, if we count retirement age, assuming we stick with 65, have less than $25,000 saved, while 1 in 4 has less than $1,000 in savings. In Minnesota, 32% of private sector employees, so that's approximately 700,000 people, work for an employer that does not offer a retirement plan. Employees of color are significantly less likely to have access to these types of workplace retirement plans. 8 other states have already enacted legislation similar to this. There are many more that have bills in the works, such as ours. To get ahead of the retirement savings crisis and help workers save, the bill before you establishes the Secure Choice Retirement Program, which is a public-private partnership for retirement savings that allows workers to set aside their wages through their paychecks. This bill has the support of the AARP, the Minneapolis Chamber, the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, Latino Affairs Council, as well as small business owners. There are quite a few letters that should be in your packets. Important to note for employers under this bill, if you already have a retirement plan that you're offering, you don't have to do anything different. But if you are not offering that, this is kind of a simple plug and play model that you could use as a small business owner. There's no requirement that you provide anything into that retirement plan. It's just one more step, simple step at payroll when you're setting up payroll for your employees. It's also voluntary for workers, so they can opt out if they have other options or if they've been doing something different to save for retirement. But again, this is just under the DE2, the program would not start until 2025. So that's one of the things in the DE2. We're also trying to conform with some changes in the Senate to make sure we're moving and discussing the same language. So, you know, we can get into the weeds, but I know you've got other bills on your agenda today, but that's the bill, and happy to move to testimony.
Thank you very much. We do have an A1 amendment. Who's offering the A1? Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Claiborne. Representative Becker-Finn. Okay, this bill brought a lot of paper. All right, my amendment has to do with the staggered rollout. I'm going to request a roll call vote on this one.
A roll call has been requested.
Okay, so my amendment, so this is a new mandate, right, for small businesses, and they're already facing an onslaught of a wave of new obligations and regulations this session. And so my amendment is offering a staggered rollout of the plan. And so this will allow time for small businesses to roll out the new mandate. So basically, the amendment, okay, so I'm just going to go over what it says. So for covered employees with 500 or more employees, there's that particular year that we would start this mandate. And then year 2, it would cover the employees of 101 to 499, 12 months after the effective date. And then the 3rd year, it would cover the employees of 100 or less.
Thank you very much, Representative Harder. Chair Becker-Fenn, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, so I guess just to get this part out of the way, I would oppose the amendment. So one thing I do want to point out is that in the DE2, the start of operations would not be until January 1st, 2025, and it actually has already in the language that this would be a phased approach, that the board that's set up for this program would determine those phases. Ultimately, the smaller what we know in the data is that the smaller the employer, the less likely those employees, those workers are going to have access to a retirement plan like this. So this amendment really undermines the whole point of the bill, which is to make sure that every Minnesotan, every worker has access to save for retirement in an easy way.
Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion to the A1? Seeing none, roll call having been requested, I will ask Mr. Westerman to please take the roll.
Chair Cleavorn.
No.
Chair Cleavorn, no. Representative Hewitt.
No.
Representative Hewitt, no. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Representative Nash, aye. Representative Bonner.
No.
Representative Bonner, no. Representative Berg.
No.
Representative Berg, no. Representative Freiberg.
No.
Representative Freiberg, no. Representative Hansen.
No.
Representative Hansen, no. Representative Harder.
Aye.
Representative Harder, aye. Representative Herr.
No.
Representative Herr, no. Representative Joy.
Aye.
Representative Joy, aye. Representative Koznick.
Aye.
Representative Koznick, aye. Representative Nadeau.
No.
Representative Nadeau, no. Representative Newton.
No.
Representative Newton, no. The nays are 9 and the ayes are 4.
With 4 ayes, 9 nays, the motion is not adopted. Excuse me. With 4 ayes, 9 nays, the motion does not prevail, and the A1 is not adopted. We have an A2 amendment. Who's bringing forward the A2?
Madam Chair, that's me, and I would request a roll call.
A roll call has been requested.
Madam Chair, I just have a clarifying
Yes.
question, if you don't mind.
Sure. go
We've
ahead.
got a DE2 that I believe we passed, but there's also in our packet a DE1
The
that was
DE
handed out to us. So
The DE1 has not been offered.
okay, I'm just confused why we have one then, so
Right,
we don't
thank
need
you.
to, are we not addressing this DE1?
We are not.
Okay, I think that was just handed to us over our shoulder, so I was like, what are we
I was
doing here?
Confused by that as well.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Okay, we are now, just for clarification, back to the A2 being offered by Representative Nash, and a roll call has been requested.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. You know, the threshold in other states where I think this has been done, Representative Becker-Finn, has been higher. I think New York has as many as 50. I believe that's where they are, but that could be wrong. You know, having been a small business owner myself and having many, many constituents and friends who are small business owners, I know that they undertake a lot of effort in keeping their small business afloat. Something like this, I think, does have carve-outs in other states where there is a threshold. I think some in nearby states are 20, 25. Well, I'm just trying to start a conversation around what can we do for small business owners who do feel heavily encumbered. And I know, Representative Becker-Finn, you are a small business owner. You've got a coffee shop. Haven't made it over there yet. But, you know, I'm very sensitive to a lot of the small business owners. I do meet with them regularly in all the cities I represent. And they feel very burdened. And this is going to be another piece of really heavy amount of lifting for them to administer back office. I don't know that there's a software piece that's been articulated in your bill, and we'll get to that later, but just wanted to do a carve out for small businesses, and I do believe that 50 is a small business. So with that, I thank you.
Great, I'll just ask you to make a motion to have the A2 before us. Just
I thought I had moved the A2, but I'll move the A2 and request a roll call.
thank you. Is there any further? Chair Becker-Fenn.
Thank you. And I do want to clarify, there are several states who have no exemption for number of employees. Some states it's 5, some states, I think you specifically noted New York. New York is 10. You know, none of the ones that I know of that have this program right now, I think the highest one is 25. 50 is a pretty big business. I just want to be clear too, as a small business owner, this won't cost me anything. This is a benefit that I can easily offer to my employees where I don't have to do the work of like meeting with insurance agents and trying to figure out, or, retirement. I don't have to deal with some guy trying to sell me stuff. And this would be an easy plug and play model. It'd just be as simple as, yes, there will be a software piece to it when you set up payroll, but I don't think the extra, maybe 2 minutes per employee it's going to take me at time of, onboarding with a new employee is really a burden to my business. I think it's a benefit that I can then offer to my employees. And so for those reasons and the ones I stated on the previous amendment, would oppose this amendment.
Thank you. And Representative Koznick, you have a
Yes, I do. I appreciate the amendment, and I think it brings up a kind of what I don't know if one's, I don't think is the right number. 50 maybe is a little high. But I had a bill in Pensions Commission, and generally the way we've worked in the legislature is the Pension Commission works together collaboratively, irons these things out with bipartisan manner and discussion and thoughtfulness, much different than sometimes the contention we have in this committee. And then the bill comes to the rest of the legislature kind of with the blessing and the approval of the Pensions Commission. So I think maybe thinking about that, when most pension bills come to us, it's a little bit more ironed out, and we don't have to decide, is it 1, is it 25, is it 50, is it 30, is it 10? Number of employees, and the details are kind of a little bit more ironed out. And thinking of that, now I know why we had a DE1 and a DE2. I think the DE1 that was handed to us was something that was discussed in the Pensions Commission, is that I'm being told, and then now we have a DE2. And so I think we're kind of maybe going a little faster. And does this bill, why isn't the bill is this the bill in the shape that the Pension Commission wants it to be presented to the legislature, or is this more the author's direction that the author wants to do it and doesn't have the blessing of the Pensions Commission that we traditionally have when we have a bill like this in front of us?
Chair Becker-Finn.
So much. This bill was heard in the Pensions Commission. I know we have the chair of the Pensions Committee is here, but I will say this isn't new. This was one of the very first bills that I introduced. It was actually passed off to me from Representative Thiessen back in 2016. So this is something that's been discussed for a very, very long time. Also, it's not a pension. It's a financial tool for workers. It doesn't cost employers anything. It has been heard in the Pension Committee. As to like what papers were handed out to you in committee, I cannot speak to. I only submitted the DE2 amendment. I don't know what that is. I don't think it's actually important. We should probably stop talking about it. The DE2 is what we moved and is the language in front of us. Again, this isn't new. We have been working on this bill. The folks from AARP, the advocates behind this bill, have been working on this for a very long time. It is very vetted. The reason we have amendments is because people have problems and we're trying to compromise to get this done. So that's the bill in front of us. I think it's a good bill as is, but as always, the committee process exists for us to make things better.
I would just like to redirect the committee to the language of the A2, which is page 3, line 4, delete the word 1, insert the word 50. Representative Herr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I am the chair of pensions, and it was heard in pensions. It did get vetted there. The bill actually was not in our possession, which is why we couldn't make amendments while it was in there. But it was heard. It does have bipartisan support. And this bill is actually a really good bill. And, Oregon has already implemented this, and they have seen great results because of the implementation, and that it's been very successful there. And so I would encourage everyone to listen to Chair Becker-Finn and, and support this bill. But that is the reason why we have amendments here, is because it was thoroughly vetted in pensions. We just didn't have possession of it. So we were asking in different committees to actually adopt the amendments that were presented.
Thank you, Representative
Madam
Herr.
Chair, could I short follow-up?
Representative Koznick, we're going to.
Because I was skipped over, but
Hey.
I'm not sure that I disagree with the bill.
I don't think you were skipped
Oh.
over, but please go ahead.
Well, I had asked a question, but follow up. But anyways, my point is, I'm not sure that I fully disagree with the bill. There's some value and merit to it. and I think it's something that should be explored, and I appreciate that part of the bill. I'm just used to having a little bit more of the, it's already in a shape that has the blessing of the Pension Commission, so I appreciate your explanation that it wasn't in the pensions possession, but it does say pensions right on top of your DE too, so that's why we're talking about the Pensions Commission. It is under that jurisdiction of that committee, so my point is the subject matter experts in that committee or commission usually have it detailed together before it comes to the rest of the legislature. But hopefully, there's a little different way that we're working on it this year, I guess, and I hope that.
Madam Chair, if I could just clarify.
Yes, Chair Jay.
We had the Senate file. So the Senate file was in there, but we didn't, that was what we were working off of. So it wasn't, and it, semantics, I guess, but I mean, it was the language that's before us.
I'd like to redirect the committee to the language of the A2. I'm going to ask.
To the A2, hopefully they can figure out the right number. I don't know that 1 is the right number for sure. If you're saying 50 is too high, that in the amendment, I can see that argument too. But the Pension Commission should do the work and figure out the right number is what I'm telling you to the A2. I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Representative Kosnick. I appreciate hearing your opinions. Lead Nash.
Madam Chair, just to the author, I think that there's probably a very strong argument to be made for some sort of exclusion for an employee size. I believe many of the states that you've referenced, Oregon, California, New York, do have those. I certainly don't want to necessarily rush towards those states with open arms on many things. And if we can find an exclusion, then I would be happy to work with you, because I do think that there are some conversations of merit around this. Don't necessarily like the bill in its current morphology, but if we could talk about that, I think that that would be a very beneficial conversation. Thank you.
And we're going to move to the roll call. If you'd please take the roll.
Chair Cleavorn.
No.
Chair Cleavorn, no. Vice Chair Hewitt.
No.
Vice Chair Hewitt, no. Representative Nash.
Aye.
Representative Nash, aye. Representative Bonner.
No.
Representative Bonner, no. Representative Berg.
No.
Representative Berg, no. Representative Freiberg.
No.
Representative Freiberg, no. Representative Hansen.
No.
Representative Hansen, no. Representative Harder.
Aye.
Representative Harder, aye. Representative Herr.
No.
Representative Herr, no. Representative Joy.
Aye.
Representative Joy, aye. Representative Kosnick.
Aye.
Representative Kosnick, aye. Representative Nadeau.
No.
Representative Nadeau, no. Representative Newton.
No.
Representative Newton, no. The nays are 9 and the ayes are 4.
With 4 ayes, 9 nays, the motion does not prevail and the A2 is not adopted. We now go to the A3 amendment. Who is offering the A3?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's mine.
Representative Nadeau, would you like to move the A3?
Just for a second, I do, yes.
Okay.
This amendment is basically, because of the DE, the DE amendment, it's a mess. You know, the line numbers in here, your amendment's not a mess. My amendment to that amendment is a mess. So I just want to talk about the issue that I'd like you to consider. This is a good bill. This is a good bill. It's all voluntary for the most part. You know, there's a little bit of money here and there, but this is a good bill for employees, and it provides an offering for small businesses to help their employees save for retirement. But what I'm concerned with in section 6 of your bill, it's the responsibilities of covered employees. And I like the membership of the board, which is in section wherever, the next section. But the responsibilities, I'm concerned with allowing the board to assess penalties on their own as far as for failing to enroll employees. I'm also concerned where there's penalties that can be be imposed on these small businesses that maybe don't make timely contributions. And I get most payroll deductions now are done through a service, but there still has to be adequate funds in those accounts. And there's all kinds of reasons that challenges occur for small businesses. And I would really just appreciate if you could think and consider maybe moving forward, that we move those penalty adoptions back to the legislature for them to impose those penalties. And with that being said, I'd love you to speak to the concept, and I'm going to withdraw this amendment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Doe. Chair Becker-Finn. I
thank you. And I appreciate the amendment and the conversation. One of the reasons that we are sending it to judiciary and civil law and not Ways and Means is because we cover civil penalties in my committee. And so I do expect further conversation specifically on that issue. I think the problem with the amendment as it is, and I appreciate the conversation again, but kicking it to the legislature, I don't know if I know you're new, but we don't move very fast. And so I think kicking it to a future legislature when we're the legislature right now and could figure out what those penalties should be, certainly open to having those conversations so it's more clear what those are. I will say the DE2 also says in the first year, it would be a written warning. There would be no penalties in the first year if employers fail to do what's asked of them in the bill.
Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. Next, we will move to testimony now that the bill is in its proper order. I have two individuals wishing to testify, Beth Cadone and Mary Jo George. If Beth would come forward first, and then we'll move to Mary Jo George. If you'd please, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Beth Cadone, and I represent the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. We're an organization of about 6,300 businesses across the state of Minnesota. About 80% of our membership have 100 employees or less. We do certainly agree with the worthy goal of encouraging savings. However, we do have great concerns over the bill in its current form. We do believe it has many unknowns related to penalties, as was just discussed. The timelines, we have concerns over the implementation. And it does not have a small business exemption, as has been provided in most other states that have this. And realize, I think the testifier was that it was only about 8 states that currently have this. For example, New Jersey's at 25 employees. New York is at 10. Colorado, Illinois, and Maine are at 5. Oregon and California do not. They're the ones that do include all employees in this. However, they really had a very long phase-in. For example, I believe Oregon was like a 6-year phase-in before they got down to having all employees included. Realize that, Minnesota already opposes a higher cost of doing business in most other states. And what we really do have concerns this year is because this bill would be added on to all the other new employer mandates that we see are moving through this year. So we'd really urge you to consider the impact of those provisions, such as the sick and safe time, the 24-week paid leave proposal, and when those are being timelines and when those are implemented. So the bill, like I said, with all these other new employer mandates that we're seeing, would really impose additional cost burdens, especially a hard hit would be our small businesses. Many of them do not have sophisticated HR systems, right? A lot of times it's just the business owner doing their payroll. True, this mandate is maybe less onerous than some of the other ones we're seeing, but it still would add a new requirement. It would expose them to cost and penalties that we were not clear on what those penalties would be. I would note in the bill that the employees would be able to change their contribution limit for the pension at any time. A lot of times there are some restrictions. For example, the plan I'm in at work, you can only do that quarterly. You can't just do it at any time. So I would urge the committee to look at that as well. And then for the penalties, I do appreciate that the amendment that came on did put it in at least to say we will do a warning the first year. That certainly, thank you for including that. We do think the penalties really should be set by the legislature and not by a non-elected board. So I would hope that would be addressed in the next committee as well. And then, as I mentioned, that the timeline, please consider just the impact of these other bills that are moving through. If those get implemented on top of this, we do think this would really create a lot of confusion, especially for our small business owners, and strongly urge an exemption for those small businesses be included. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate your thoughtful comments. Mary Jo George. Welcome to the committee. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mary Jo George, and I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy for ARP Minnesota. And on behalf of our nearly 620,000 members, we appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of this bill. We want to thank Representative Becker-Finn for bringing the bill forward, and as she indicated, it's been a long time that we have been pushing this legislation forward. You know, and as you've heard, Minnesota faces a significant retirement savings gap with far too many workers not saving for their own future. At this rate, an unacceptable number of middle-class retirees will be unable to afford their basic needs in retirement for things like medicine, utilities, and rent. Yet we can get ahead of the crisis by passing a secure choice program, which allows workers to set aside their wages in an easily accessible auto IRA plan. You know, ARP survey data continues to show that small business owners want to offer retirement savings plans and employees want to save, but the problem is one of a lack of access. And this is because, and I think you've heard today, that costs can be prohibited for small employers and small businesses to provide their own plans. And why people might suggest that individuals could open their own individual retirement accounts, only 5% do, and that number has not budged in decades. Greater access to retirement savings plans can help thousands of households build retirement savings and reduce wealth disparity. In fact, employees are 20 times more likely to save merely by having access to a workplace retirement plan. Moreover, the benefits of increased retirement savings go beyond individual savers and their families. According to our research, Minnesota could save as much as $258 million in public assistance over the next 10 years simply by having people save for their own retirement. Affording Minnesota workers an effortless way to save for retirement not only saves taxpayer dollars, as people will need less social services, but it can help folks retire with dignity. And finally, we just believe that in order to rebuild the promise of financial security in retirement, we have to look at new, modern, expanded options, which this bill aims to do. So we really urge your support, and many states have had bipartisan support, so we would really hope for bipartisan support on this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George, for your testimony. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to testify? I see none. Is there any further discussion to the bill?
Madam Chair.
Representative Newton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Becker-Finn, this is a good bill. I like the bill. But having been the owner of small businesses in the past, most of my employees were part-time. Would they be covered by the bill as well?
Chair Becker-Finn.
Yes, there is different from some of the other worker issues we've been talking about this year, though this would not apply to people under 18.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Follow-up? Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Cleaborn. I need some clarification, or perhaps you can explain this to me. So when there are plans that people opt into, is there a minimum or a maximum that people can contribute each year?
Chair Becker-Finn.
Thank you. So this would be one plan that you can opt into that would be set up by this board, and then the board would determine what those amounts are.
Thank you. Representative Harder.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Representative Herr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Chair Becker-Finn, for carrying this bill. It is a long time in the making, and really appreciate you giving opportunity to those who may not necessarily have them. I just wanted to point out that Oregon has the longest running program and has seen significant early success. And within 3 years of the program, 17,121 employers had enrolled in the plan, and 112,652 employees had funded accounts, and plan assets now total $156 million. And we all know in investments, it's the assets that generate returns, which then fund the plan. And so it actually is a self-sustaining type of plan, and it doesn't cost us anything to do this, maybe just early on when we're setting it up. I also want to note that Pew Research indicated that this tool also increases private savings as well. So some of our lowest income earners working at jobs that sometimes they're switching from multiple jobs because that's what they have to do, this is a great tool for them to do that. And they otherwise would never have the opportunity. And then they would have to navigate a complex financial system. As many of you know, I spent 15 years in the private sector in investments and finance. And it is very complex. You think you get a financial advisor and you're going to get the advice that you need, but you don't. you don't realize all the fees and costs. You don't realize whose best interest is at stake. They often don't even want to service you if you're a low-income person who's not going to contribute a lot. And so they don't give you the best service. And so, and I know that firsthand. And so I really appreciate the fact that this bill is coming forward, and we will be giving opportunities for those who may never get the chance to open up an account that will be in their best interest and for their savings. So thank you so much, and I hope for support of this bill.
Thank you, Representative Farr. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to be careful with my microphone so it doesn't fall to the floor again. So, Representative Baker-Finn, I appreciate the goals of this bill, and certainly think that having people be able to save is vital. I'm not 100% there with this version of the bill yet. I think there's some conversations that are worth having, and in addressing you, I see your head nodding a couple times. I think there's some things that we can talk about and tighten this up so that it's less onerous on business owners. Talk about some of the exemption levels. So 50 isn't enough. Maybe we come up with a different number. Again, I think being able to rely on retirement and savings is important. I mean, it adds some stability in people's lives. Very, very important. I know that folks aren't necessarily saving right now because inflation is through the roof and it's putting a huge pinch on people's budgets and lives. But I think that we're not there yet with this bill, and for that reason, I'm not going to be supporting it today.
Thank you, Lead Nash. And before you close, I'll just add my own closing comments. I was very fortunate when I was young to have an employer who had just a small private plan. And that employer wasn't very big, and he taught me the value of saving and the value of time and what happens when you save little amounts over time. And so I greatly appreciate you bringing this bill forward, and I'll ask for your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Claiborne, and appreciate the discussion. Again, one of the reasons I thought that it needed to make another stop in another committee is so that we can keep working on this. I recognize you don't serve on my committee, but it will be coming to Ways and Means after that. I would like to get us to a point where we can have more it is a bipartisan bill. It has been, but I would love to grow on that and get the bill as good as we can. So appreciate the conversation today and would appreciate support. Thank you, Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. And with that, I will renew my motion that House File 782, as amended, be re-referred to the Judiciary Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing a few. House File 782, as amended, is re-referred to Judiciary and Ways and Means. Thank you, Chair Becker-Finn.
Thank you.